Hi, welcome to Pod Decoded. You've been told, probably your whole life, that being nice is a virtue, that agreeable people get further, that if you lead with warmth, avoid hard conversations, and never make anyone uncomfortable, you'll build better relationships, better teams, better businesses. Alex Hormozi sat down on Diary of a CEO and said something that dismantles all of that. He wasn't being provocative for the sake of it. He said it the way people say things when they've tested them and stopped arguing about them. Being nice is actually unkind. And I want to sit with that because there's a specific three-word phrase he uses inside his company to replace it. I'll get there. But first, the myth has to come apart. The belief that niceness is always good isn't wrong. Not entirely. It's a social lubricant. It smooths over friction. In schools, in families, in most group settings, agreeable behavior is rewarded and disagreeable behavior is corrected out of you. So by the time most people enter a professional environment, the lesson is deeply set. Don't make people feel bad, avoid unnecessary conflict, keep things smooth. And they carry that framework directly into how they manage, how they give feedback, how they handle the moments that actually require honesty. They pull their punches, they soften everything. They make critiques vaguer than they need to be because precision feels harsh, and they call it kindness. Here's what Hormozi actually observed inside his own company. A lot of managers, good people, well-intentioned, had their central focus not on performance, not on whether the person in front of them was actually succeeding, but on not upsetting anyone. That's a different goal entirely, and when that's the goal, something predictable happens. He draws a distinction here that I think is one of the sharpest things I've heard on the topic of feedback. Criticism, he says, is a discrepancy between actual and desired. You were supposed to be on time. This week you were late twice. That's criticism. It's specific. It's behavioral. It points to a measurable gap between what is and what should be. You're lazy. That's an insult. That's a character judgment. And the only thing you can do with a character judgment is feel bad about it. It gives you nothing to work with. Most feedback lives in the second category, not because managers are cruel, because they're vague. Because the specific version feels too blunt. Because they're optimizing for the other person not feeling attacked rather than the other person actually knowing what to change. The cost of that is real. People don't lose jobs because of one significant failure. It's almost always 100 small things that accumulated over months, 100 small things that nobody addressed when they were still small. Hormozi tells a story about a director at his company. High performer, technically excellent, but everyone found him difficult to work with. 4 different senior leaders sat down with him individually. 4 separate conversations. And after all 4, nothing changed. Why? Because every conversation amounted to some version of stop being a difficult person. And what do you do with that? Nothing. You just feel insulted. You don't know which specific behaviors are the problem. You have no map of what to actually change. So Hormozi sits with him, and instead of that same vague critique, he identifies 3 specific behaviors. When you interrupt people while they're talking, stop. When someone is speaking, wait until they finish, then ask if they're done before you respond. When you feel the urge to give unsolicited advice about how someone should run their department, ask if they want it first, and if they say no, say nothing. 3 specific behavioral corrections, nothing about character. The next week, people were asking, what happened to him? He's a completely different person. Hormozi's line on it, he wasn't a difficult person, he just didn't know how to behave. Here's the part that stays with me from that story. That man sat through 4 conversations with senior leaders who all agreed he had a serious problem. 4 conversations. And he walked away from each one with nothing actionable, because every one of those leaders prioritized not making him uncomfortable over actually helping him succeed. The niceness they performed was completely useless to him, and they thought they were being kind. This is where the framework lives. Kind, not nice. The difference is the motivation behind the behavior, whose comfort you're actually protecting. Nice is conflict avoidance dressed up as consideration. You soften the feedback, you hedge the truth, you make things vague enough that no one can accuse you of being harsh. And you tell yourself it's because you care about the other person. But the real focus is your own discomfort. The friction that would come from saying the precise thing, the moment of tension you're trying to skip past. Kind is a completely different orientation. Kind means your focus is on whether this person succeeds, and you're willing to accept the discomfort of saying the true thing if that's what they need to hear. When you withhold accurate, specific feedback because it would create an awkward moment, that's nice. You're protecting yourself. When you give someone the specific behavioral map they need to actually improve, even though delivering it is uncomfortable, that's kind. That's actually caring about what happens to them. Hormozi's practical framework for this is stop, start, keep. When you give feedback, you name 3 things: what they need to stop doing, what they need to start doing instead, and what they're already doing well and should continue. Specific, behavioral, actionable. No vague directives about leveling up, no character assessments, just a clear description of what needs to change and what the alternative looks like. The director who was called a difficult person for months, he just needed someone to use that framework on him. And once someone did, the problem was gone in a week. There's a broader version of this, and Hormozi gets to it when he talks about champions. The question people always ask is, what do champions have that I don't? What quality, what edge, what gift? He says the framing is backwards. The better question is what champions don't have that most people do. And his answer, an off button. They lack the mechanism that tells most people they've done enough. Everything in their lives is oriented toward the thing they care about. They don't give themselves the easy exit. Now think about what feeds the off button in the people around you. Part of it is uncorrected mediocrity. When nobody gives you honest feedback about your work, when everyone around you optimizes for smooth and comfortable rather than true and useful, you have no reason to push past where you are. The absence of honest feedback quietly signals, this is fine, this is enough. Being nice in that sense isn't just a management failure. It's a way of giving people permission to plateau. And this runs further than team management. It's in how we handle difficult client conversations. It's in how we respond when a friend is making a decision we know is wrong. It's in how we present our own work, whether we tell the comfortable story or the accurate one. The instinct to soften, to hedge, to make things vague enough that nobody gets upset, it shows up everywhere, and everywhere it shows up, it costs something. Hormozi isn't arguing for bluntness as a personality trait. He's arguing for specificity as a form of respect. The precise, behavioral, actionable version is harder to say. It's also the only version that's actually useful. Here's what I take from this. The version of kindness most people are performing isn't actually kindness. It's conflict avoidance with a better story about itself. Real kindness means someone is better off after talking to you than before. It means you gave them something they can actually use. And sometimes, often, that requires saying the uncomfortable true thing instead of the comfortable vague one. Kind, not nice. That's the shift. If you want to go deeper on this, on the frameworks people like Hormozi use to cut through the things that keep most people stuck, I've put together a resource in the Pod Decoded community on School. Link in the description. Subscribe. I post decoded insights from the world's best podcasts every week, and drop a comment. Do you think being nice is costing you something? I'm genuinely curious where people land on this one. That's the idea. Make of it what you will.